You just found a ship that prints $200,000 a day. No typo. 200 grand. Every single day. Sound like a scam? It's not. It's a VLCC, a very large crude carrier, and right now, owning one might be the closest thing to a legal money printing machine on the planet. But here's the catch nobody tells you about. This same ship can also bankrupt you, sanction you, or sink a billion-dollar oil spill straight onto your balance sheet. Stick around, because by the end of this, you'll know exactly why shipowners are either living like kings or losing everything. There's no in-between in this business. Let's start with the sticker shock. A brand new VLCC, the kind that hauls 2 million barrels of crude across the ocean in one trip, costs about $128 to $132 million fresh off a South Korean shipyard. That's the easy part. Here's the wild part. A used one, a 5-year-old vessel that's already been through the ringer, costs more than the new one. We're talking $168 to $172 million for secondhand tonnage right now. Yeah, read that again. Why would a used ship cost more than a brand new one? Simple. You can't wait 3 years for delivery. War in the Middle East, a half-shut Strait of Hormuz, and everybody scrambling for tonnage they can use today, not in 2028. Signal Ocean, the analysts who track this stuff daily, straight up said the entire depreciation curve for these ships has been lost. Their words, not mine. In a normal market, an old ship is cheaper. Right now, normal doesn't exist. So you drop the cash. Maybe you finance most of it. Maybe you go all in. Either way, you now own a floating steel city the length of 4 football fields. Congrats. Now the real bill starts. Feeding this beast isn't cheap. Daily operating costs for a VLCC run close to 10 grand a day, just for crew wages, insurance, maintenance, the basics of keeping the lights on. That's before you burn a single drop of fuel. Add bunker fuel, port fees, canal tolls, pilotage, tugboats, and you're easily north of $30,000 to $40,000 a day just to keep this thing moving from point A to point B. And it never stops. Doesn't matter if you're loading crude in Saudi Arabia or sitting anchored off Singapore. The meter's always running. Now here's where it gets fun. When rates are hot, and right now they are scorching hot, a VLCC can pull in over $200,000 a day on the Middle East Gulf to China run. 1-year time charters are locking in above $130,000 a day. Do that math for a full year. You're staring at revenue north of $40 million annually on one ship. Subtract your OPEX, subtract fuel, and you could still be pocketing tens of millions. This is why Greek and Korean owners are ordering these things like they're going out of style. BIMCO clocked over 150 VLCCs ordered in 2026 alone, more than double all of last year combined. Quick pause. If numbers like this are blowing your mind, hit that subscribe button right now, tap the like, because we're about to get into the part of this business that can wipe out every dollar you just made. This is where it gets dangerous. Here's your reality check. Rates this high don't last forever. This is a boom-bust industry, always has been. Go back a few years and VLCC rates were sitting flat, sometimes barely covering OPEX. Owners were bleeding cash just to keep ships moving. One bad cycle, one oversupply of new tonnage hitting the water, and your 200 grand a day dream ship turns into a floating money pit charging you 10 grand a day just to exist. Timing the market isn't optional here. It's survival. And then there's the stuff that actually keeps shipowners up at night. Piracy off Somalia and the Gulf of Guinea. Drone strikes in the Black Sea. Houthi attacks in the Red Sea that already forced entire fleets to reroute around Africa, adding weeks and millions in extra fuel costs to every voyage. One wrong turn, one missile, and your multi-million-dollar asset is a headline. Then there's the shadow fleet problem, and this one's ugly. Over 1,300 vessels worldwide are now running what's called the dark fleet, hauling sanctioned oil out of Russia, Iran, and Venezuela with fake documentation and, get this, often zero real insurance. Michelle Wiesbachmann, a maritime intelligence analyst who tracks this daily, called it flat out a billion-dollar oil spill catastrophe waiting to happen. Her words, "These ships are old. Average age 17 years versus 9 for the mainstream fleet, undercrewed, and completely uninsured if something goes wrong." In January this year, a Russian tanker called the Eventin lost engine power and drifted helpless in the Baltic Sea for days, carrying 99,000 tons of crude toward Danish and Swedish coastlines. No Western insurer would touch the tow. Germany had to send a tug just to stop a potential ecological disaster. That's the nightmare scenario for any tanker owner, legit or shady. Under international law, if your ship spills oil, you're on the hook. Full liability. Researchers estimate a single major dark fleet spill could cost between $859 million and $1.6 billion in cleanup and damages. One accident, one ship, enough to erase every dollar you made across an entire fleet, across an entire career. So why do people still do it? Because when the cycle's right, nothing else on earth pays like this. Alexander Saveries, CEO of tanker giant CMB.Tech, said it best when he told investors that tanker markets continue to defy gravity thanks to shifting trade routes and a fleet that's aging faster than it's being replaced. Nearly half the world's VLCCs will be over 15 years old by the end of this year. Old ships need replacing. Replacing means more orders, tighter supply, and rates staying elevated longer than anyone expected. Here's the part most people miss, though. You don't actually need to buy a whole tanker to play this game. Shipping funds, tanker stocks like Scorpio Tankers or DHT Holdings, even fractional shipping investment platforms let regular folks get exposure to this exact market without personally guaranteeing a billion-dollar spill liability. That's the smarter entry point for most viewers watching this right now. On the upside, skip the nightmare fine print. So what's the actual verdict here? Owning a real physical oil tanker fleet is one of the highest risk, highest reward plays in the entire shipping world. You're looking at potential annual profits in the tens of millions per vessel during a strong cycle, stacked against operating costs that never sleep, a market that can crash without warning, and legal exposure that can end you overnight if you cut corners on insurance or compliance. This isn't a passive income play. This is a full-contact sport for people with deep pockets, strong nerves, and a legal team on speed dial. If there's one thing to take from this, it's this. Before you ever put real money into shipping, whether that's stocks, funds, or an actual vessel, check who's insuring the cargo and who's insuring the hull. In this industry, that one detail separates a fortune from a federal investigation. What do you think? Would you ever risk it on a tanker fleet? Or does this whole industry sound way too dangerous for your portfolio? Drop it in the comments. Subscribe if you want more of these breakdowns, and I'll see you in the next one.